The sound of the heart monitor was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. Beep, beep, beep. Each one felt slower than the last, echoing through the cold white walls of the hospital room. My daughter lay there, pale, motionless, her skin too fragile for someone who used to light up every room she walked into. Tubes ran down her arms, machines hissed softly beside her bed, the kind of quiet that kills you in pieces. And while she was fighting for every breath, he was laughing. Just 3 miles away, her husband was sitting in a bar, smiling across the table at another woman. His tie loose, his sleeves rolled up, whiskey in one hand and sin in the other. Music thumped. Glasses clinked. The woman touched his wrist and whispered something that made him grin wider. I know because I saw it, on a live story, posted by someone who didn't even realize what they'd captured. My daughter's husband, celebrating his freedom while she was trapped between life and death. The sound from the video mixed with the beeping in my head. The contrast was unbearable, bass from the bar blending into the soft mechanical pulse of the monitor. It felt like two worlds colliding, one bleeding out, one raising a toast. I stared at my phone, replaying that clip again and again. He looked happy, effortlessly happy, as if the woman lying in that hospital bed had never existed. I wanted to throw the phone through the window. I wanted to break something, scream, punch the air until my hands bled. But all I could do was sit there, gripping the cold armrest, feeling the rage crawl under my skin. He promised me once that he'd take care of her. He shook my hand on her wedding day, looked me in the eye, and said, "You can trust me, sir. I'll never let her down." I believed him. God help me, I believed every word. Now, under the hum of fluorescent lights, I looked at my daughter and realized how stupid I'd been. Her lips moved slightly, maybe a whisper, maybe a reflex. The doctor said she couldn't hear me, but fathers know when their children are calling. I leaned close, brushed the hair from her forehead, and whispered back, "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm not leaving you." Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I hesitated, then opened it. "You don't know what he's really done." I read it twice, then a third time. The words hit harder than the heart monitor ever could. They weren't random. They weren't spam. Someone out there knew something and wanted me to know too. My chest tightened. My pulse slowed. The anger that had been roaring inside me went quiet. Not gone. Just focused. I looked at the photo of him on my screen, his smile frozen, the woman's hand still resting on his arm, and I felt something shift inside me. That was the moment everything changed. I didn't know what he'd done yet, but I knew this. Whatever it was worse than betrayal. And what I did next will make you question what justice really means. Before everything fell apart, we were ordinary, the kind of ordinary that people mistake for peace. After my wife passed, the house turned into a museum of silence. Every sound, every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of wind through the curtains, reminded me of what was gone. It was my daughter, Emily, who filled the silence. She was warmth in human form. The kind of person who always remembered birthdays, who brought soup to sick neighbors, who stayed on the phone with me every night, just so I wouldn't eat dinner alone. When she moved out, she left me something small, a wristwatch wrapped in tissue paper. The back was engraved with 5 words, "Don't be alone again." I wore it every day. Still do. And then she met him. Michael. Everything about him screamed perfect. He was handsome in that magazine way, crisp shirt, neat hair, a smile that made people trust him too quickly. He worked in finance, carried himself like he already owned the world. He shook my hand the first night we met, firm grip, eye contact that didn't waver. He said, "You raised an incredible woman, sir. I'll make sure she never has to worry about a thing." It sounded like a promise, but looking back, it was a warning. Their wedding was small, but perfect. Emily glowed. Michael looked every bit the devoted husband. When they danced, I remember thinking, maybe she's finally safe. For a while, they were happy. Dinners, weekend trips, matching photos, the whole picture-perfect routine. Then, slowly, things started to change. At first, it was subtle. He'd insist on handling their finances because Emily's too soft-hearted with money. Then it was her car. Easier if it's under my insurance. Then her job. You don't need to work so hard, babe. Let me provide. He said it with charm, with a smile that felt like affection. But every kindness took something from her. When I visited, I saw the changes. She laughed less. Her eyes lingered on the floor longer. Her phone buzzed constantly, but she rarely answered in front of him. I asked once quietly if everything was okay. She smiled, that practice smile daughters give their fathers when they're protecting them. I'm fine, Dad, just tired. But I knew better. One night, late, the phone rang. Her number. I still remember the sound of her voice, cracked, shaking, small. Dad, Emily, what's wrong? Her breath hitched. He left me. What do you mean? I'm at the hospital. I fainted at work. They said it might be my heart. I called him, but he said he had meetings. Then his phone went off. Silence. Only the sound of her trying not to cry. I didn't want to bother you, she whispered, but I didn't know who else to call. That was the first time I realized how alone she really was. I drove through the night to reach her. The streets blurred. Every red light felt like a curse. When I got there, she was asleep, pale, under the harsh white lights. The nurse said her husband had signed the paperwork, paid for the room, and left. He said he'd be back, she added softly. That was 4 hours ago. I sat beside her bed, the watch on my wrist ticking loud in the quiet room. Don't be alone again. But that's exactly what she was. When she opened her eyes the next morning, she smiled weakly and whispered, "He didn't come back, did he?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. That was the night the clock started ticking for him. He just didn't know it yet. Hospitals are strange places. They're built for healing, but all I could feel was rot. The smell of antiseptic mixed with fear. The quiet, the endless waiting. That morning, the nurse came in with a clipboard. "Mr. Harris," she said softly, "we're having an issue with your daughter's billing. The insurance company rejected the claim." I frowned. Rejected? That's impossible. Her husband handles all of that. She hesitated. It says the account linked to her policy was emptied 2 days ago. Emptied. The word hung in the air like poison. I looked over at Emily, still unconscious, her chest rising and falling under a web of wires. "She's insured," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Her husband's policy covers everything." The nurse gave a small, helpless shrug. "You'll have to contact him directly, sir." I did. He didn't answer. 2 calls, then 5, then 10, straight to voicemail. By the time I called his office, the receptionist told me he'd left town on business. Business. While my daughter was lying here between life and death. I couldn't sit still. My hands were shaking, the anger too sharp to contain. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I started digging. I went down to the insurance company myself. It was one of those glass towers that smell like money and lies. The woman behind the counter smiled professionally. "Can I help you, sir?" "I need to check on a policy," I said. "My daughter's, Emily Harris. Her husband's name is Michael." Her fingers clicked over the keyboard. Then she froze. "I'm sorry, sir. I shouldn't be showing you this, but..." She turned the monitor slightly toward me. There it was. An outgoing wire transfer, $500,000, sent to an account labeled only as M. Carver. "M," I whispered. "Who's M?" The woman shook her head. I'm not authorized to access that information. Then she clicked another window open. But there's something else you should see. She printed an email chain, 5 pages long. The header read, Request to transfer beneficiary, urgent. It was dated 1 week before Emily's collapse. From Michael Harris to insuranceadminipremia.com. Please process the beneficiary update immediately. My wife's health has declined, and it's only logical for me to be the primary recipient in case of unforeseen outcomes. Unforeseen outcomes. That's what he called it. My throat went dry. My hands trembled as I read the next line. I'll cover any express fees. Please confirm by end of day. He even paid extra to make sure it went through fast. He bet on her death, I muttered. The clerk looked at me with pity, but said nothing. I took the papers and left. My footsteps echoed through the marble lobby. Outside, the wind was sharp, cutting through my jacket. The city kept moving like nothing had happened. Cars honking, people laughing, life continuing as if the world hadn't just ended. But mine had. I sat in my truck for a long time, staring at the papers. That's when I saw it. At the bottom of the form, tiny, printed letters, co-signed by medical contact. A name, illegible, smudged, but it was there. Someone inside the hospital had approved it. Someone had helped him. I looked back toward the glass building. Reflections of clouds slid across the windows. Perfect, untouchable, empty. Inside those walls, a man had already decided my daughter's worth. He had cashed out her life like a stock about to crash. When I returned to the hospital, the nurse was adjusting Emily's IV. She's stable for now, she said softly, but we'll need authorization for the next round of treatment. I nodded absently. I'll handle it. In the chair beside her bed, I unfolded the papers again. My daughter's name, her policy number, the transaction details, all of it real. The anger was gone now. What replaced it was worse, a kind of cold understanding. I reached over, brushed her hand with mine, whispered, You were right about him, sweetheart. I just didn't want to see it. The heart monitor beeped steadily in the background. Each sound, a reminder. He thought he could write her out of the world with a signature. But I was going to make him regret ever picking up that pen. The night I found those documents, I didn't sleep. The papers lay on the kitchen table, lit by the yellow glow of a single lamp. His signature sat there, clean, confident, cruel. I needed help. Not the kind that prayed for justice, but the kind that made it. So I called the only man I trusted for that kind of work. Tom Callahan. He'd been a detective before the years, and the politics wore him down. Now he spent his time fixing cars and keeping secrets. When I showed him the email, he whistled low. Jesus, John, he muttered, running a hand through his grey hair. This guy's not just a bastard, he's methodical. You said he's in finance. Investment management, I said. Knows how to move money, knows how to hide it. Tom tapped the papers. Then we'll find where he hid it. For the next week, we dug, quietly. Tom had contacts in the cyber division, old favors owed, people who didn't ask why. Within days, he traced a series of transfers from Michael's accounts. Offshore, Bahamas, Cayman, even one in Switzerland under a shell company named Mariner Capital. He's been preparing this for months, Tom said, scrolling through the data on his laptop. Probably thought she'd never notice. He turned the screen toward me. There was a photo, a screenshot from social media. Michael and his lover sipping champagne on a yacht. The caption read, "Freedom tastes expensive." My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. He wasn't hiding anymore. He was celebrating. A few nights later, Tom called again. You might want to see this yourself. We met behind the hospital, in the security office. A tired guard handed us a flash drive, muttering, "You didn't get this from me." Tom plugged it into the computer. The footage played, grainy black and white from the parking lot cameras. There was Michael, pacing near the entrance. Inside, on the hospital logs, Emily was coded, critical episode. Then, at 10:47 p.m., she began seizing. At 10:48, Michael glanced at his phone. At 10:49, he walked out the door. The next camera caught him crossing the lot, straight into a car where a woman waited. Same hair, same earrings. The lover from the yacht photo. He slid into the passenger seat. The car door closed. They drove off. He didn't look back. I stared at the screen, my hands curling into fists. Tom turned off the video. "That's your smoking gun, John." I shook my head slowly. "No, that's humanity's rot on film." We took the footage to the police. They watched it, nodded, and said what they always say when the law doesn't have a box for what's right. "Mr. Harris, I understand this is painful, but this doesn't prove criminal intent. Leaving the hospital isn't a felony." I wanted to laugh, to scream, to ask what was a felony then. Loving someone enough to fight for them. Instead, I thanked them, walked out, and left their hollow sympathy behind. That night, I tried something on my own. Call it desperation. I snuck into Michael's house while he was away, just long enough to plant a recording device under his office desk. I wanted his confession, his arrogance, anything that would make the world see what he really was. But arrogance runs both ways. 2 days later, I got a message from him. No greeting, no subject. Just one line. "Next time you break into my house, old man, I'll have you arrested." Attached was a photo. Me, caught on his security camera, standing in his study. He'd known. He'd watched me. The ground shifted under my feet. For the first time, I realized I wasn't the hunter anymore. I was the prey. That night, I sat in the dark, the broken recorder on the table beside me, and said the words out loud. That's when I realized, this won't end with the law. The watch on my wrist ticked once, then again. Time was moving forward, and so was I. The first trap failed. The second one wouldn't. This time, there'd be no mistakes, no mercy, and no cameras watching me instead of him. I spent nights thinking about how to corner a man who believed he was untouchable. The answer was simple. Let him feel safe. Men like Michael don't fear the law, they fear losing control. So I decided to give him the illusion of control. One last time. I called him on a Wednesday evening, my voice calm, steady. "Michael," I said, "we need to talk. It's about Emily's assets." He hesitated. Then that arrogant drawl came through the line. "Assets? John, she's gone. You don't need to hold on to her stuff. Let's make this easy." "Exactly," I said softly. "Let's make it easy." A pause, then a smirk I could almost hear. "All right, old man. Tomorrow evening?" "Tomorrow's perfect." He thought he'd won. He always did. Tom came over the next morning. He brought coffee, paperwork, and a look that said he'd been waiting for this day longer than I had. "You're sure about this, John?" he asked. "I was sure the day she called me from that hospital," I said. He nodded. "Then let's end it clean." On my table lay a folder. Official-looking, stamped, notarized. It was the kind of thing only men who believed in power would bother reading. In reality, it was a legal booby trap. The documents looked like a transfer of property and insurance assets to Michael. But the fine print, hidden among legal jargon, redirected everything to the Emily Harris Memorial Foundation, a charity Tom had quietly registered the day before. If Michael signed, he wouldn't just lose the money. He'd legally acknowledge the fraudulent accounts, the offshore transfers, the signatures he'd forged. His own handwriting would become his confession. Tom tapped the last page. He won't read it. People like him never do. When Michael arrived that evening, he wore his usual confidence like armor. Tailored suit, fresh haircut, cologned arrogance. "John," he said, stepping into my living room like it was his. You're looking better. I motioned toward the chair opposite mine. Whiskey? He grinned. Now that's the father-in-law I remember. I poured him a glass. My hands didn't shake this time. We made small talk, or at least he did. He bragged about business deals, trips to the islands, his new chapter. I nodded, letting him hear his own voice echo in the quiet house that once held his vows. Then I slid the folder across the table. She wanted things settled. For closure, I said. You sign, and it's done. I don't want anything. It's all yours. He smirked. You finally came around, huh? He didn't even glance at the contents, just flipped to the signature page, clicked his pen, and signed with a flourish. See, he said. Told you I'd take care of it. I nodded slowly. You did. He reached for his glass, but before he could drink, the front door creaked open. Tom stepped in, dressed in plain clothes, a notary stamp in one hand. Sorry for the intrusion, he said with a friendly smile. Just here to witness the paperwork. Standard protocol. Michael didn't recognize him at first, or maybe he didn't care. He shook Tom's hand, impatient. Sure. Whatever makes it legal. Tom signed the witness line, then placed the embossed seal on the page. The sound echoed sharp and final. That was the moment the trap shut. Michael stood, buttoned his jacket, and extended his hand toward me. It's good we can end things like men, he said. I took his hand. My grip didn't loosen. For a split second, I saw confusion flicker behind his eyes, like maybe he realized something had shifted. Goodbye, Michael, I said. He left without looking back. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Tom turned toward me. You got him. I didn't answer. I just looked at the signed papers on the table, his name etched beneath my daughter's, sealing his fate. Tom chuckled darkly. You gonna tell me how it feels? I stared at the door, the faint smell of his cologne still hanging in the air. Then I smiled, not wide, not kind, the kind of smile that freezes blood. It feels, I said quietly, like the beginning. By sunrise, the world already knew his name. Wealthy financial advisor exposed by dying wife's father. It was printed across every screen, every feed, every whisper in town. The news anchors said the words slowly, savoring them like gossip that finally had teeth. Michael Harris, a prominent investment consultant, is under investigation for fraud and insurance manipulation, following evidence presented by his late wife's father. They called me a hero, a grieving man who had uncovered the truth, the father who brought justice when no one else would. But heroes smile, and I couldn't. The story spread faster than I ever imagined. His office was swarmed with cameras. Colleagues refused to answer his calls. Clients pulled out. Investors withdrew. By noon, his reputation had collapsed faster than any market he'd ever played. Tom sent me the article with one simple line. It worked. I didn't respond. I just sat there, staring at the TV as Michael's face flashed again and again. Walking through the lobby of his own company, reporters shouting questions, microphones shoved toward him like knives. Did you forge the documents, Mr. Harris? Did you exploit your wife's illness for profit? He didn't answer. He just kept walking, his jaw tight, his perfect composure cracking for the first time. Then came the twist I didn't plan, the part the universe must have written itself. Later that evening, a new headline hit the screen. Source close to investigation leaks audio evidence. I turned up the volume. The voice was unmistakable. Michael, calm, arrogant, every word drenched in greed. Once she's gone, we're rich. A woman's voice followed, trembling, small. What if someone finds out? Then we'll move, start fresh. I'll take care of you. The woman's name appeared moments later. M. Carver, the same name from the wire transfers, his lover, his co-conspirator. But she'd flipped. To save herself, She'd given them everything: texts, recordings, emails. The walls had finally closed in on him. The footage on the news showed the police walking him out of his office in handcuffs. Cameras flashed, voices shouted, chaos swirled. For once, he didn't look untouchable. He looked small, and I just watched. Not with triumph, not with joy, just silence. I glanced at my wrist, the watch Emily had given me. Don't be alone again. Its ticking was the only sound in the room. Then I opened my phone, scrolled through old voicemails until I found hers. Her voice came through soft and tired, the kind that still carried light even when fading. "Hey, Dad. I just wanted to say I love you. Don't worry about me, okay? I'll be fine. Always have been. Just promise me you won't be lonely." I closed my eyes, the sound of her voice echoing against the sound of the cuffs clicking on his wrists. The world was calling me a hero. But all I felt was the weight of her words and the ticking of a clock that would never sound the same again. A week after his arrest, the noise began to fade. Reporters moved on to the next scandal. The neighbors stopped whispering. The world forgot, like it always does. But I couldn't. The silence that came after revenge is a different kind of quiet. It doesn't soothe you, it haunts you. I went to Emily's apartment that afternoon to gather what was left. The place still smelled like her, lavender and paper and rain. Everything was frozen in time. Her favourite sweater draped over the chair, an unfinished cup of tea, the small notebook she used to keep by her bedside. I was packing the last box when something slipped from one of her books. A sealed envelope, yellowed at the edges, my name written in her handwriting. "For Dad, only if something happens to me." My chest tightened. My hands trembled as I tore it open. Inside was a single page, written in blue ink, shaky but deliberate. "Dad, if something happens to me, please don't hurt him. I know you. I know how your anger can burn through reason. I want peace, not war. He made mistakes, but I can't live knowing you'll destroy yourself trying to destroy him. Please promise me you'll let it go." The words blurred as the tears hit the page. Peace. That was what she wanted. But I had given her war. I sank onto the floor, clutching the letter, shaking with the weight of everything I'd done. I'd thought revenge would bring justice, that it would somehow honor her. But now, holding her last words, I understood what it really brought. Emptiness. She had known. She knew he was unfaithful. She knew he was using her. And still she kept it from me. Not out of weakness, but out of love. She didn't want me living in the darkness she was trying to escape. I whispered into the empty room, voice breaking. "I kept my promise to protect you, but not the way you wanted." The clock on the wall ticked. The sound reminded me of her watch, the one on my wrist. I looked at it, then at her photograph on the nightstand. Her smile in that picture was bright, untouched by pain, by betrayal, by everything that came after. And for the first time since she died, I smiled back. Not because I'd won, because she deserved a smile, even if I didn't. Later, I stood in her hospital room one last time. It was empty now, stripped of machines and life, just sterile air and cold light. I placed the letter on her bed. The faint hum of the lights buzzed overhead, and somewhere in the distance, a heart monitor beeped. Soft, fading, like an echo of the past. As the sound drifted away, I closed my eyes and whispered, "Rest easy, sweetheart, the fight's over." And for the first time in years, I wasn't sure if I was talking to her, or to myself. The cemetery was quiet at sunset. The wind moved through the grass, brushing against the rows of names carved in stone. The light was warm, golden, the kind that makes even sorrow look peaceful. I walked slowly to her grave, the gravel crunching under my boots. In my hand, I carried a bottle of champagne, the same brand her husband had opened on that yacht, the day she almost died. It was empty now. I'd kept it all this time, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Kneeling, I placed it beside the headstone. The glass caught the last rays of sunlight, glowing faintly before the shadows took it. For a long while, I said nothing. Just stood there, staring at her name. Then softly, the voice came. Not from the grave, but from somewhere inside me. "Let it go, Dad." I exhaled. My breath looked like smoke in the cooling air. "Justice or revenge," I said under my breath. "Maybe there's no difference." Behind me, a voice broke the stillness. A reporter, young, nervous, holding a microphone. "Mr. Harris," she asked, "people are calling you a hero. Others say you went too far. What do you think?" I turned to her, the dying light catching my face. "Too far," I repeated. A pause. Then I gave her the only truth left to give. Some justice isn't meant for courts. The camera clicked. The sound of the shutter echoed once, then vanished into the wind. I looked back at the grave, at the bottle, the sunset, the quiet. And as the screen faded to black, my voice lingered, low and steady. Would you have done the same?